Just a bit ago, federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre wrapped up his Canada First rally in Ottawa, taking place on Flags Day, in an attempt to pivot the Conservative Party's 2025 federal election messaging away from the carbon tax election type stuff they've been saying for the past couple of years and towards a Canada First election plan, obviously, both in response to the ongoing trade tensions with the United States, as well as the fact that Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland, no matter which one of them ends up winning the Liberal Party leadership, have both committed to getting rid of the consumer carbon tax. Are they really getting rid of it? Obviously not. They will simply reorganize how people pay the carbon tax, whether they put more on industry or, like Mark Carney has proposed, having a carbon tax on tariffs, or like a carbon tax tariff where you tariff countries with a carbon tax on imported goods because they do not have their own domestic carbon tax. It's very silly and it still hurts consumers, but obviously it does take the oomph out of running on scrapping the carbon tax if you're scrapping an industrial carbon tax or you're scrapping a carbon tax tariff. But this rally did pretty good stuff for the Conservatives. I think it was fairly successful. It had a lot of viewership. Some people are exaggerating how many people truly watch this thing. Some people are saying, like the viewership count on the photo below says, oh, 204,000 people watch this. Not really, because the way X counts viewership on its platform is if someone scrolls by and looks at the video for 3 seconds, that is counted as a view. That still, I guess, matters because the person saw Poilievre is doing a big rally, but it's not real viewership. In fact, tons of people who are not conservative and hate Poilievre follow him on X, and every time they scroll past him and they look at him and say, screw him, and they move on, that counted as a view. But anyways, overall, still good viewership on YouTube. I think after the rally ended, there were already 20,000 unique instances of viewership. The rally was so big in person that a lot of people had to go stand out in the hallway. Obviously, I'm not there. I'm in Calgary, but it wasn't the biggest room, but it was absolutely packed to the gills. And it generally is harder to get conservatives to show up to somewhere like Ottawa, where there is not as many conservatives in downtown Ottawa. Regardless, though, the Liberals are not taking this well. I don't know why they decided to tweet through this entire event. You've heard the old adage, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Well, also don't chirp at your enemy when they're doing something that the public likes. There was nothing offensive about anything that Poilievre was doing. If he had messed up on stage and they pounced on it, that makes sense. But Poilievre was giving a fairly crowd-pleasing rally, talking about a lot of very popular policies that he's running on, and the Liberals couldn't shut up. It was bad. I think my mom compared it to the Democrats constantly chirping at Donald Trump for cutting wasteful spending in like places like USAID and other places in the government where like $50 million are going to pay for condoms in Gaza or whatever. And they're like a chirping at Trump, which is just making them look bad and emphasizing how much people like Trump's cuts. But here is what the Liberals have been doing the entire time, playing out of context clips of Poilievre, trying to embarrass him or whatever. I don't know. And they're playing this quote from the Jordan Peterson interview where he says, "It's not the Americans' fault. It's our fault. We're stupid."
It's not the Americans' fault. It's our fault. We're stupid. It's not the Americans' fault. It's our fault. We're stupid. It's not the Americans' fault.
Who wants to bet there is additional context to that post that is not Pierre Poilievre calling Canadian citizens stupid? It is probably, because I have seen that interview, but it's been a while, that he's probably talking about our policymakers, our politicians, the fact that our economy is lagging behind, or there's good things happening in the US and bad things happening in Canada, not because the Americans have stolen from us or screwed us over. It is simply that we have bad policy, and because of our stupid actions, we are not doing as well. That's really what's going on here. Anyways, moving on. Here's another one. It says, question for Pierre Poilievre. How can you say you'll put Canada first, but not get your security clearance? Why? Stop. It's such a bad talking point to constantly talk about the security clearance. He didn't get the security clearance because there was no point in getting the security clearance. Getting the security clearance is worthless because you could not talk about what was in the Nisakop and Hogue report early if you had read it, because to be able to read it, you have to commit that you'll never talk about it. That's why he didn't do it. Here's another post. Under Stephen Harper, defense spending was cut below 1%. Pierre Poilievre is all talk. And here's a quote here saying conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he won't commit to meeting the 2% NATO defense target. And that's from CBC News, July 12th, 2024. No, right now he's like committed to doing it. He just said in his first year or two he wouldn't be able to get to 2% of GDP being spent on defense, which the Liberals haven't achieved in 9 years, by the way. And also, the spending on defense doesn't matter unless that defense spending is quality. The problem right now with Canada's military is that we technically spend more on the military by rate under Trudeau than we did Harper. But under Harper, we had an actual fighting force that could fight in Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan. And under Trudeau, we have like a DEI department with pencils instead of rifles. That's a big difference here. But yeah, another post that doesn't do the Liberals any good. Here's another one. Pierre Poilievre and Conservatives voted against support to protect our borders, take guns off our streets, fund our intelligence service agencies. They won't stop crime and protect Canadian. This last one is this middle one is so weaselly. Like they're all weaselly, but take guns off our streets. The Liberals are talking about legal guns. They want farmers having their shotguns taken from them, and Poilievre and the Conservatives want to remove guns from gang members. But the Liberals are pretending now that they're the ones who want guns off the streets because they want law-abiding citizens to be disarmed, even though the Liberals haven't done anything on border security to stop gun smuggling. They have very light sentences, especially for people who are carrying illegal handguns. And the actual funding of the police has been like stagnant since they got in. We have not had our per capita police spending really keep up with the population. Anyways, another one. Pierre Poilievre wants to cut the programs and services you rely on, cutting $10 a day childcare, dental care, minimum wages, tax cuts for the middle class. Well, he didn't vote for tax cuts for the middle class. Are they saying that their HST freeze for 2 months, which just ended today, was him voting against tax cuts for the middle class? The carbon tax is about to go up again in April. No, he didn't vote against tax cuts for the middle class. Goodness. Our taxes are sky high. If the Liberals would like to point out where they've cut taxes, I'd give them a round of applause, but I know I won't have to do that. My goodness. But all this messaging was tried out months ago. You can even tell the background image was when he was in look, it's like the summer. It was like back in like spring or summer of 2024 when he was at like a playground like Markham or whatever. Like, what's going on? Now, Pierre Poilievre had the chance to axe a tax, but instead he voted against our plan to give all Canadians a HST tax break, which just ended the day they posted this. He won't put Canadians first. I thought you guys said it was racist to put Canadians first, or even say Canada first, even though Wilfrid Laurier said that. Another one, Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives voted against the National School Food Program. Why do more kids need food? Why are kids going hungry at school and they weren't going hungry at school when Harper was prime minister? I wonder. It's almost like the program doesn't matter and the economy and generally families' economic health, financial health matters. But yeah, it literally just goes on like this. He'll never put Canada first. He thinks it's a broken country. Isn't that nasty and terrible? Oh, look at this. And they're being community noted all over the place. He's not fooling anyone. Statement by the Liberal Party of Canada on Poilievre's desperate rebrand. After spending years calling Canada broken and following Donald Trump's playbook. What playbook? Pierre Poilievre is now desperately trying to rebrand himself in the hopes that Canadians will forget who he is. So here's another reminder. He tried to cut healthcare services for Canadians. He called childcare a slush fund. It is. A lot of consultants are going to get a lot of money implementing this bloated program. He raised the retirement age to 67, which, guys, it kind of needs to be raised because, one, we just have way too many people to spend on who are retiring, and we just cannot afford it. It's just how it works. You can't pay for things you don't have money for. And having people retire at 65 worked in the 1930s when the stuff was first created. These days, not nearly as much. But here he is. And you can retire at 55. You just don't get your benefits till you're 65. Anyways, he says he wants to put dangerous guns back on our streets. On our streets, you mean in someone's gun safe in their house? My goodness. And then that's their post before the actual tirade started. They're just shooting themselves in the foot. They are putting a high-powered rifle up to their foot and shooting themselves. There is nothing about what any of this messaging that's good. But I'm going to give an award to Chrystia Freeland for the stupidest take on the rally. So here we have from Freeland HQ, which is her leadership HQ's social media account. It says, "We were wondering where we've seen this movie before," with a ooh wow kind of face right there. And yeah, it's Donald Trump and Pierre Poilievre are now the same because they have rallies. Also, people actually have to name a policy of Trump's that's bad past just tariffs, because Canadians tariff things all the time. So the Liberals do not want to play that game, since our supply management system requires us to do things like put 200% tariffs on American dairy. So what do they actually have a problem with Trump? Like cutting wasteful spending, lowering taxes, securing the border? Like, what's their actual problem with Trump? Because if they actually detailed it out, they would look insane.
And I won't forget the men who died.
I guess I don't need the audio for this, but yeah, oh my goodness. Poilievre walks out on a rally like Trump. Usually, politicians just float onto the stage. They actually get risen up from below the platform to give their speech to avoid looking like Trump. I can't, oh my goodness, he is pointing at people, shaking hands, disgusting, can't have it, can't believe that he would let this happen. But the runner-up for the stupidest take of this on this, no, actually, okay, no. I think this might be number one. I'm not even sure. Here's Mark Garrettson, our favorite Liberal MP from Kingston and the Islands, saying they're the same picture. Canada's broken. Canada first. And then it's the whole office meme. Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture. Does he actually? No. The whole point is that you can believe that Canada has broken policies, the economy's lagging, and that we should put Canada first instead now. Like, what does Mark actually think that this post means? But I think this might be the runner-up. The true runner-up for stupidest take goes to Mark Miller, the current failed immigration minister, who I'm not even thinking is running as for re-election. But he comes out with Timbits and coffee because he wants to make some tired illusion to when Poilievre brought Tim Hortons to the truckers at the Freedom Convoy, which, by the way, guys, I need to bring that back up. That didn't make Poilievre look bad. Nobody was like scared of Poilievre bringing truckers coffee and Tim Hortons, like Timbits. In fact, the Freedom Convoy these days is far more popular than it was even at the time it was running, because a lot of people looking back are like, yeah, the government overreached. But here's Mark Miller trying to dunk on Pierre Poilievre and make clown Poilievre.
But I brought you guys. I brought Pierre some donuts today, just like he was bringing to the Freedom Convoy when he was watching them illegally occupy the hill. But I didn't know if you guys will get locked out, so I got some. You probably can't accept donuts, so I'll give it. It's highly unpatriotic. Just bailout. Just media bailout.
I do like Ezra Levant here saying, like, yeah, the media doesn't take donuts, but they do take media bailouts.
Look, I just showed up to make sure that the flags were the right side up. Last time I seen Pierre cheering this hard, the flags were all upside down. He was cheering for people that were pissing on Canada, and that's what Pierre's doing. You can't say that Canada is broken, and at the same time say that Canada is the best country in the world.
Is our immigration system not broken?
The two just.
He's not going to answer that question, Ezra. That would destroy his whole point.
Is the border not broken?
Together.
You can talk about how your country is the greatest on the planet and also think that you need reforms. It's what, patriots do. Nationalists just pretend the countries are the greatest at all times, doesn't matter what's going on. That's what a lot of liberal Canadian nationalists are like. But if you're a Canadian patriot, you can say the immigration system's broken, tax system's broken, regulations are too high, our crime's way too high, we have drugs everywhere. Acknowledging that is not unpatriotic. In fact, I think it's fairly unpatriotic to see these problems and not want to fix them. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. This was a big own goal for the Liberals. Again, all they ended up doing was bringing more attention to a pretty good moment for Pierre Poilievre. His rally was really good. He hit on great points of his platform. A lot of people, if they haven't heard them yet, might have actually now seen it because the Liberals couldn't shut up during the actual event. they kept bringing more attention to it, thinking that they were somehow sticking a pole in between like Poilievre's spokes. And it's like, that's just not how it works. If someone's doing something good, you can't just chirp at them and say, he's actually bad to get people to not vote for you. That's not how that works at all. But yeah, the liberal leadership race is boring everyone to death. They're scared that this rebrand of Poilievre's from going from the carbon tax election to the Canada First election is going to steal the very small amount of momentum they were getting from kicking Trudeau to the curb and trying to install Mark Carney, which apparently isn't even going that well. As I brought up yesterday, the Liberals are actually not even doing very well. Like the Carney is actually kind of floundering right now. I'll bring that chart back up. He's only at 38%. And Freeland's at 29, Gould's at 18. That's pathetic for Carney because we're expecting a coronation and now it's a real fight. And the crosstabs regionally show that Carney's support's very kind of diffuse. And if it's a point system, I do believe it's a point system where each riding's worth like 100 points. And so if you get one vote in that riding and you're the only one who gets the vote, you get 100 points. But if you get 1,000 votes in that one riding, you only still get the 100 points. And then people get as many points as they had, like in terms of the proportion of votes in that riding. And Carney's vote is very diffuse, which tells me that he actually doesn't have any particular appeal. It's not actually good to be the candidate for everybody. You want to be the candidate for enough people in the right places to become prime minister. You'll notice that Poilievre is not really campaigning in downtown Montreal or Quebec City very much, or rural Quebec. Not really a point in doing that. Really not campaigning in Victoria. Really not campaigning in PEI because he just doesn't need the seats and he needs to concentrate in getting the win across the finish line. If a local candidate thinks they can win Charlottetown, leave it to them. But mostly Poilievre is focusing on areas you can make gains. He's not campaigning in Parkdale Hyde Park because it's just not a riding that's in the cards at the moment. So anyways, that's it for me. See you guys later.